All right, it's starting. Hello, Chaweon. How are you?
Hello, hello, Kalan.
Well, here today, I'm Calande La Luna, director of the Blackthorne School, and I have a very special guest here, Chaweon. And she does the wonderful Witches and Wine, among other things. She's also been getting into some marketing for occultist stuff. So Chaweon and I were talking about this interview for a while, and we decided that we wanted to kind of do a co-interview of each other. So this might be not your mama's interview here. This,
Hopefully not.
yeah. So we're gonna just kind of be asking each other some questions and letting you all see and hear, and hopefully we'll have some really fun and interesting stuff to share with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Chaweon. And maybe we could start out with you just sharing a little bit about what you do.
Ooh, the elevator pitch.
Oh,
My name's Chaweon. I'm Korean American, and I call myself a curator, an
mm,
educator
love
for
that.
the occult. Yeah. So
Mhm.
basically, what I do is I try to find out who are the most experienced, accessible, like people who I feel as though their occult knowledge is just so next level that I want the world to know. And there's so many people I haven't been able to speak to yet, but I'm working my way through the.
Mhm.
So I've been very lucky to have interviews with people like Jason Miller, Jack Grail, who also has a class with Blackthorne School,
Mhm.
Phil Hine, Aidan Wachter, just so, and I'm sure there's like every single person that I've had on, Sam Block, and there's been so many guests that have come on. I'm at about 100 videos now. At this,
Wow.
yeah, some of these interviews are like split into two parts, but still, it's a lot of people that I've talked to. And I curate the occult ideas, magic ideas, astrology, tarot ideas that I feel that every young witch should know, young and old, young at heart witch.
Mm, I love it. And I totally relate to that idea as a curator, with me kind of curating instructors of wondrous
Yeah.
courses that you can't find just anywhere. So I really relate to that, and I really respect that kind of work that you
Yeah.
do.
Well, come on. Let me throw the question back at you. So what's the elevator pitch for you?
Yeah, so I've owned and run the Blackthorne School for over 2 years now. It's pretty crazy. And we offer courses in occult education, focusing especially on witchcraft and sorcery, I would say, although that's not all of what we do. And yeah, I help find just the right instructors that I really believe in and want to promote their work and feel like they have something to share that you can't just read in a book, or maybe it would highly benefit you to have the community learning environment that we offer. Even though all of our classes are online, we pride ourselves on having just a wonderful group of students in our courses that, probably in their own right could teach a course on many things. So yeah, I that has been a huge labor of love and gift to the community I've been trying to offer. So,
One of my favorite classes of all time is actually from your school. And
oh,
it's Hail Hekate, Walking the Forked Path, Jack Rail's class.
oh,
Yeah.
that's one
So
of my favorite of our classes too. And you beat me to the punch. That was one of my questions for you. What
I've
would you
actually
say you liked
taken.
the best? Oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
No, no, I was gonna say that I've taken two classes actually from
Okay.
Blackthorne School, and it's been Hail Hekate. And I always recommend that anybody who's really into Hekate, and actually your school was so generous to offer my TikTok followers some scholarships
Mm-hmm.
to that course. I think it's a very important course for any young witch who wants to learn more about Hecate, but not only Hecate, but also the way that she was venerated it with an especially like Hellenistic Egyptian lens. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
that is a very, very important perspective to learn in general if you want to do Western occultism, because
Absolutely.
that region, that time, the Hellenistic Egyptian lens, it was kind of the foundation, I think, for a lot of Western occultism that we do today. So
Mhm.
that's also, you're getting kind of like two things, right? It's the
Mhm.
Hekate and learning about that lens. And also I've taken a Maya Rourke Start Praxis, which I thought was also a lovely class. Um,
Oh,
so
good.
yeah, so it's not just witchcraft classes, it's also astrology
Mhm.
your
Yeah.
school provides. And I've seen classes that deal with ancestor veneration. I've also seen, just a variety of different sorts of topics in your school.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm really working hard to try to cover the major bases. I mean, it would be impossible to get a course on everything I would like to have
Yeah, of
since
course.
there's only one of me, right? But yeah, we offer a lot from astrology to tarot to witchcraft to sorcery to necromancy and PGM and Hekate and
Oh, and I also take Jack's
yeah.
50 Rights for 50 Nights, the PGM course. And
Mhm.
basically anything that Jack Grail puts out, I get.
I think that's a good rule to live by.
There are some people who everything that they put out, I get, I read every tweet, every Facebook post, anything, basically any sort of content that leaves their brain, I consume. And Jack Grail
Mhm.
is one of those people for sure.
He is very worthy of that.
He really is. He
And
really
I will
is.
tell you, I've met him several times in person and consider him to be a dear friend as well as a business colleague. And he's every bit, if not more lovely in person than he is in his
That's one.
videos,
That's one of
which,
the things that I've
yeah.
realized about. Um, okay, so basically, I've noticed a pattern in everyone that I've interviewed. For I would say somebody, a mage who's kind of working at next level. Somebody who all of us look up to. We read their stuff and we're just like, wow, they're amazing. I would
Mhm.
say like over 90% of them, they follow this pattern, which is in person they're also really cool people. So
Mhm.
the stereotype of like that really cranky or socially weird like mage, actually the ones performing, the top performers, the Super Bowl players of the, I would say, the Western occult world in terms of publishing and just like thought leaders, they're actually people that you would love to hang out with like in person. Like
Mhm.
I've hung out with Jason Miller in person. He's so fun. We went to a sushi restaurant, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
neat.
And I've
Oh,
talked
he's
to
one on my
he's
list of dream hangouts, right?
he is so fun and so down to earth.
Mhm.
Same with like I speak to Aiden Wachter like as a
Mhm.
friend, like a lot,
Mhm.
a lot, a lot.
Oh,
And
nice.
same with Jack Grail, like he and I, we also like talk as buddies. And Phil Hines, so lovely. And the thing is that I really, Frater Ash and Chasan, absolutely lovely as well. And here's the thing, like Frater Ash and Chasan and Phil Hine are two perfect examples of people that other mages may be like, oh, they're intimidating, they're, like they're like not going to be friendly because they have this reputation that precedes them because they're so good at what they do. But the thing is that both of them are actually really, really cool people. Like so
Mhm.
cool. Like
Mhm.
next time I'm in London, I'm so hanging out with Phil Hine again because I just think he's so lovely. And Frater Ash and Chasan, like he is so encouraging and so nice. Like he's so
Mhm.
nice. And even though he is a grimoire traditionalist, and everybody
Mhm.
thinks, oh, grimoire traditionalist, what's the stereotype? It's some dude who's probably just like a total bro. And so, no, he's like really, really, he always talks about the women in magic who have influenced him. They were the biggest influences on him. And he has
Mm.
very liminal thinking. He's like super like in touch with his like emotions and things like that. So the thing is that please don't think that you need to live up to some stereotype of what a magician needs to be, because actually the most magical people, they're neither male, female, this, that. They're like always occupying this liminal space. That's why they're so magical, right?
Mhm.
And liminal people
Absolutely.
are naturally cool. It's like artists, rock stars, creative people, like truly creative people, all of them across the board inhabit that liminal space. And that's the reason why we love them, because when we're around them,
Mhm.
the vibe is immaculate. And I would say if you're around a mage who does not have that immaculate vibe, you need to really wonder, are they actually doing the sort of magic that I want to do? Because if the magic you want
Mhm.
to do is practical and effective, has results, but it is also like spiritually nourishing, you're naturally going to do liminal magic, right? If it's going to be both this
Mhm.
and that. So you want somebody who also embodies this and that. And it's hard to be this and that together if you're not super authentically liminal. So this is one of
Yeah.
the ways that I can definitely figure out like who I want to talk to and who I want to like. If I feel like I want to chill with this person, just like have some beers and just like chill with them and go to like maybe a concert or a sushi restaurant or whatever, I'm just like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm totally down with their magic.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, that is very refreshing to hear you talk about maybe just people having practitioners who really live out the work and use the work not only to get
Yeah.
stuff in their life that they want, but also for personal development, which is a huge part of my belief of what part of what the work needs to be that we need to be doing as practitioners.
Is that how you got into witchcraft?
Pers- um, yeah, I think I wanted to become a fully empowered person. Um, and I wanted to explore the great mysteries. Yeah, I mean, I think witchcraft is so fascinating because you can never learn everything. I'm always learning, I'm always growing, I'm always finding things that blow my mind. And I can't be on a path where I feel like I know it all. But
Like
this
what
one definitely keeps me on my toes.
what's your origin story?
Mm. Oh, that's a good question. I was raised very fundamentalist Christian and was actually like very involved, as a teen in my church youth group. Oh, the horror. Um, no, but I did have some what I would consider mystical experiences as a Christian. Uh, but as I got into college, I began to realize that that path wasn't supportive of a lot of different types of people. And I felt very confined to one tiny box of what I should be. And I left the church. I no longer practice Christianity in any way. I kind of dabbled in Buddhism. I was agnostic for a few years, and then I one day, just kind of a stroke out of the blue, which we probably all know wasn't a stroke out of the blue, but I just felt this deep, compelling drive to research witchcraft online and kind of looked, and I was like, I don't really believe a lot of what I was taught in Christianity in terms of like, oh, witchcraft is evil, witchcraft is harmful. So I just Googled the heck out of Wicca and witchcraft and was like, oh, turns out I believe in like 98% of this stuff. And
Is that
I
what you
will,
are? Are you Wiccan?
no, no. I did, well, okay. It- I I studied Wicca for a few years. I got up to my second degree in Wicca, but I just kept feeling like, oh, I feel like I'm not getting what I came here to get. And what I identified that as being was direct spirit work and kind of spirit communication, the devotional practices, which I'm not saying that some Wiccan paths don't have that and do that well. Like in hindsight, there might have been some Wiccan traditions that would have better served me, but I stumbled upon traditional witchcraft books, particularly the work of Robin Artisan, and I thought, oh my gosh, if this is real and I could do this, this is exactly what I want to do. And then I ended up going to a seminar that Robin used to put on and just had a mind blowing experience and really had like a heavy like initiatory experience that kind of rocked my world, like sometimes in good ways, sometimes not in good ways, but kind of like that deconstruction process. And I've been practicing for a number of years now. So
So
yeah, what about you? I would love to hear a little more about your path and how you started.
I think that we came from very different paths because I started out in life very much a skeptic. A favorite story to
Mm-hmm.
tell is that when I was 5 years old, I was already an atheist. Like I was a hardcore atheist from very young.
Ah.
And my family, they were Catholic, Christian, whatever it is, but I was not moved. And nothing, absolutely nothing has ever moved me when it comes to, like threats of going to hell, threats of this, threats of that, none of that scared me. None, like I
Mm-hmm.
was scared of some movies that I watched of like Gremlins, but I wasn't scared of any threats of God and stuff. Like something in me was always just very much like this spirit stuff. There's no empirical evidence. I'm speaking like I'm, 5 years old thinking like that, like I just was like, this doesn't make any sense, right? This just did
Mm-hmm.
not make any sense. And I was not one of those kids who was like super like mature or anything like that. It was just simply that when it came to that subject, just that subject, still believed in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, but when it came to like the Christian religion and just any religion involving like God, I was just like, this is just why are you bullshitting me, guys? What, you think I'm stupid?
Mm-hmm.
I always had that attitude.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother, she like came into a room when I was like having a nightmare, and I was obviously very distraught, and she like spread holy water around the room. And I remember at that age being like, come on, you should know better. Like you should be hugging me,
Mm-hmm.
comforting me, instead of like going around throwing like this water around when I don't believe in this stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I always came from that mentality. And as I grew up and I learned how to read, and then I was reading things from the new atheists, Christopher Hitchens, Dawkins.
Mm-hmm.
I was really into reading about theoretical physics, and I didn't realize this at the time, but I had a religion. That religion was science. That religion was
Mm-hmm.
skepticism. So I worshipped at the altar of what I consider to be superior thinking, which is the thinking that involves using scientific instruments, empirical data, consensus reality that can be objectively measured and repeated amongst as many people and as many times as possible. And always that little bit of show me, where's the money? Skeptics. But I think deep down, there was always the part of me in the closet. My spirituality was in the closet, because to reveal any sort of um,
Mm-hmm.
to reveal of desire for the mystery when you're really into skepticism is like showing weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So I could never reveal it. I was just like, oh, I hope no one knows that I think astrology is kind of interesting. I
Mm-hmm.
hope no one realizes that I think that psychic phenomenon, I think that there's merit to it. Turns out later, I find out that Russia, like when it was the Soviet Union, they had so many research centers because they were like developing psychic spies. And so
Mm-hmm.
they didn't see psychic ability as some ookie gookie thing. They saw it
Mm-hmm.
as literal science, and they were like, we're actually going to build contraptions you can wear around your head to amplify your natural psychic energy. So there
Mm-hmm.
were plenty of societies, including European societies, that did not have this very binary thinking that American and maybe continental European society had. So I think the reclamation of my Korean ethnic heritage has been very important, because part of that reclamation has been the decolonization of my mind in so many
Mm-hmm.
different things. And part of that decolonization is to reject the dogma that Western secular society has taught me as them being superior. And I was like, superior to who? Because there's plenty of societies, most societies in the world happily coexist with both the spiritual, the mysterious, and the progressive scientific parts as well. So the
Mm-hmm.
fact that Western secularism has stripped, for instance, Buddhism of all its religious aspects, of the demons, of all the sort of like the mythology, and made it into some sort of like, whitewashed, literally, psychological framework. I think, has erased Asian identity and voices from that sphere.
Mhm. Mhm.
So for me, my path has very much been about starting on a path, then branching off into little things that the little rivulets have all come back again. And now I'm back on this path, but I think back on this path trying to see that witchcraft and magic and the occult, they're just tools. They're
Mhm.
tools to be utilized for self-empowerment, for whoever to design your life, to fulfill what Aleister Crowley would call the true will, capital T, capital W.
Mhm.
But the thing is that it's a tool. It's not my religion. I'm still an atheist. And
Mhm.
at this point, if I'm still an atheist now, I mean, literally, God would have to come down and like something would have to happen. Something like he'd have to come down and make me pancakes or something for me to be like, you know what? I think you're real. So I don't believe in external spirits.
Uh-huh.
When I do ritual, I believe in them, but that's because I talked to Phil Hine. And Phil Hine, so open-minded, he was just like, listen, it's fine to be an atheist because the thing is that you don't have to believe in something 100% for it to be real. While you're in ritual, because when I'm in ritual, it's very real. So he gave me the movie analogy, which is the analogy I use all the time for new witches. I'm like, you go into a movie, you know that it's not real. Tom Cruise is in it. It's written by, directed by, produced by, acted by. And yet, if you're the asshole in the movie who's going to be like, this is not real. No, Tom Cruise isn't really the vampire Lestat. No, not really. You're not going to enjoy the movie and you're not going to leave touched and moved because that's what art
Mhm.
does, right? Art and creative things, including magic, what they do is they change us, they alchemize who we are. So if we leave the movie theater completely untouched, it's almost like what a waste of time.
Mhm.
Versus you go into the movie and you allow the script, the music, the entire production of the movie to affect you however you want it to affect you. In fact, certain art has been so influential in human history because a lot of art actually, because the thing is that it changes the way that we think and feel about ourselves as human beings. That's the reason why I forget who made that quote, but people asked this emperor like, about war, and they just kept talking about like, what's the point of war? And he was just like, we make war so that we can make art. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
what's the point of war? Yeah, it's to build a society where we can create things that change us. So I'm
Mhm.
probably fucking that up, but the thing is that what I realized was that when I'm doing ritual, I can see it in that way. I'm going into a movie,
Mhm.
I'm engrossed in that movie. I'm allowing myself to be moved. A great movie will make you cry, laugh, forget about you as an ego. In
Mhm.
that space where you are no longer you, you can be filled
Mhm.
with a certain type of spirit, whether it's an internal archetype coming out, like I believe as an atheist, or an external spirit coming into you if you believe in external spirits. Either
Mhm.
way, when that ego is removed from you, then you can actually be in that liminal space, be moved. You can go. I went to a uh, shit, that artist, I forget her name, but anyway, that Swedish mystical artist from the one who influenced like, oh shit. Anyways, I went to her. She had a MoMA. There was a MoMA exhibit of
Oh.
hers. I went there and I stood in. I've seen pictures, and I stood in front of a full-sized, not Von Klimt, because I'm thinking about the other one, but it's similar to that shit. But anyways, I went to her exhibit, stood in front of the original, and I was moved. I was moved by a painting, a static work
Mm.
of art made out
Mhm.
of pigments, wooden frame, canvas stretched over it. And yet
Yeah.
I left the museum a different person. What does that mean?
Mm.
What that means is that's what ritual is. It is a work of art, right? It is a
Mhm.
work of art that changes you. And so when I do rituals, magic rituals, whether I do it as an atheist or you do it as somebody who is trying to have direct contact with spirits, or somebody who works with demons, or a Christian person prays with their rosary, or whatever it is, at the end of that, we are hoping to have some sort of revelation, some sort of change of perspective. And so to me, I realized this is all a matter of vocabulary. The technology is sort of just the artifact of the thought process. This is literally just technology. And when that happened, and I realized that when I'm in ritual, I don't have to worry about being, Ms. ultimate atheist and stuff. And instead I can relax into it and be like, even if 1% of my life I believe, but 99% of my life I don't believe, that's okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
okay. You don't have to believe all the time. You can be contextual. And so because of that, I relaxed into it thanks to people like Phil Hine, like giving me that sort of guidance. And ever since then, my magic has flourished. My inner
Mm-hmm.
alchemy has flourished. Everything about my
Mm-hmm.
life has blossomed. And it's because of that mindset switch. And I believe, as somebody who is still a skeptic, still an atheist, still somebody who does not believe in spirits, and yet still does magic simply because magic works. And I've said many times before, the moment magic doesn't work, I'll drop it because it's not part of my identity. It's a tool for me. But the thing is,
Mm-hmm.
it works. And that's one of the reasons why I am comfortable telling people about it, because I believe that it is a tool that can be so helpful to so many people. And the fact that we're put off by vocabulary is unfortunate, but it's more than the vocabulary. It is a technology, it is a practice, it is techniques, it's a tool. You don't build a house with just
Mm-hmm.
one tool. You build it with a hammer, saw, screwdriver, lasers, whatever it is that you're trying to do. But if you only have one tool, then you're going to ruin. If you only have a camera, you're going to crash all the windows. You're going to put in nails, but you can't put up windows. So the thing is that we want to have all the tools possible. That's the reason why you can be somebody who believes in science, you believe in religion, you believe in magic, you believe in art, you believe in so many things, and you are naturally a very liminal person and therefore a very naturally magical person. If you
Yeah.
simultaneously believe in so many things at once and yet at the same time nothing at once, because then you have no ego. Then inspiration and life and the invisible hand of the universe can come in and guide you in life, so you're everything and nothing at the same time, super magical, and your life just kind of flows like you're just chilling down like the freaking Shenandoah River on like a tube. And I'm just like, isn't that what we all want? If that's what you want,
Mm-hmm.
a great place to start would be magic or religion,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's sort of my long-winded origin story slash my manifesto. Do you
I
have a
love
certain, you have a manifesto when it comes to magic?
Oh, wow. Well, I was just gonna say I love your openness about just the tough parts about reconciling what is my worldview and, being able to both be atheist and practice magic. I think that that's not talked about as much as it could be. And I think it's important to allow different types of people with different needs to be able to practice.
Right.
So, yeah.
Ah, Hilma af Klint. Hilma af Klint. So this is
Mhm.
her. This is her. And
Mm.
there
Mhm.
is she has famous paintings we've all seen.
Ooh, yeah.
Imagine standing in front of like the original. Often they're huge. There was one that was like rather big. It was like really big.
Ooh.
And she was very mystical. She was very mystical, and I think she was not. She was into, maybe was it the Theosophical Society? I forget, but she was very
Mm.
mystical, and her paintings were trying to show the mystical aspects of human life. And
Mm.
so, even though I do not have the same spiritual and mystical beliefs as her, to stand in front of a spiritually empowered work of art and to see the thought process of this remarkable woman, it was an alchemical moment for me. And
I
it still
bet.
affects me. Yeah. And so I was just like, this is magic. Magic isn't just about herbs and whatever else, you know what I mean? Magic can
Mhm.
also be standing there like a statue in front of a still painting in a museum while people are kind of going back and forth and just
Mhm.
looking at all the lines, and something about those lines, you don't understand the language that it's speaking in, and yet it is speaking to you, and something in you
Mhm.
speaks back to it. To have that experience, and I know there's so many people who are not religious, not spiritual, nothing at all, and you will see them just stare at a painting for hours. They're talking to the painting, and the painting's talking back to them. And if that's not magic, I don't know what magic is.
Mhm.
If they're not witches, I don't know what witch is.
Well, one of my most profound teachers, Fabeku Fatumise, uh, he talks a lot about art as magic, as
Yes.
art.
Oh, he's
And
great.
like
Yeah.
being able to work magic through doing art. And that's been something I've been highly interested in. And one of my most profound recent workings was actually a painting I did that was entitled Good Medicine is on Its Way. And I, shortly after creating that painting, and I was having a little bit of a darker spot myself, shortly after doing that painting, I not only got the COVID vaccine, but I also like got some other types of medicine that was really helpful. So it was kind of like a very potent and a
Lucky.
very real physical way, like that made a very big difference in my life. So
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just so incredible to me how life moves like that when you are, I almost want to say, like, most people, when they start off in magic, oftentimes they do it because some emergency arises. Oh my God, I need to
mhm,
pay rent. Oh my God, my boyfriend, girlfriend left me and I want them back, whatever it is.
mhm,
And so you do magic in a very prescriptive way. And you do these
mhm,
rituals because you think that those rituals are going to be powerful. And then I think if you keep with it, you start to realize that, wait a second, what if my entire life was a magic ritual? Right?
mhm,
And then suddenly it's not even just about the ritual that's from a grimoire or from some witchy book anymore. It's about things like making tea, making paintings, doing art, writing poetry, having a great conversation with a friend and really being present, watching flowers blossom in the morning, watching the sunrise, walking
mhm,
down the street of New York City filled with pollution and stuff, and yet finding beauty in everything. Like
mhm,
suddenly, when every aspect of your life becomes magical, magic comes to you in ways that you never purposely or intentionally enchanted for, and yet it was what you wanted and needed anyway.
mhm.
And this is right,
Absolutely.
right? Has that
Mhm.
happened to you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I also do psychotherapy as my other job, and like I have I've had a couple of clients just mention like Kalahn, they use my other name, but Kalahn, whenever I talk to you about something I'm struggling with, I don't know what kind of good juju you have, but it always seems to like to work out. I'm just like, huh, wow. And I don't know that I claim full responsibility for that sort of outcome myself, but I do think there is power in tapping into these deep things, and also just the relationships with spirits built for me. And I know that's maybe different than your worldview, but I do find that my spirits really help smooth certain things out, and maybe even kind of strain out, like certain people from my life that I don't really need to have around, and that kind of thing. So I've definitely noticed a profound shift in that sort of thing as I've gone along this path.
I've definitely noticed that as I go along this path, one of the things that, and I use that term invisible hand, and I actually got it from, I think it's Adam Smith's like Wealth of Nations when he talks about the invisible hand of the economy. I'm very much somebody who is grounded in this world of money, this world of practical things, this world of reading
Mhm.
about science, reading about the economy. I'm like really big
Mhm.
into crypto and, NFTs and stuff right now. So I am not somebody who's like on a beach in a circle, like doing kumbaya. Like I want to
Mhm.
live in this world. I'm like, if I wanted to
Mhm.
just do the love and light, I could have just stayed in the ether. That would have been way more effective to do it that way.
Mhm.
Why did I come on Earth with this decaying meat suit, as my transport vehicle with
Yeah.
shit, with vomit, with menstrual blood, with death, with diseases that kill innocent
Yeah.
children? Why did that happen?
Mhm.
And as an
Mhm.
atheist, a very dogmatic atheist when I was younger, I think I had anger towards the delusion that I thought that religious people had, that God is merciful, God is good, God will show the way, God has a plan. I was just like, I'm sorry, but that is a sociopathic, psychopathic, awful God, And I just remember just being so angry that like these things would happen, and that either God was impotent because God lets it happen, or God was a complete asshole. So I had these strong feelings that led to this dogma. Now that I'm
Mhm.
older and I've had time to think about it, and now that I see that instead of being angry at this God or whatever, instead, what I'm seeing is that there is mystery. Like for me to just say that, God is like this and therefore I think he's like a loser, or like
Mhm.
for me to say this or that, I'm just like, but I don't know, I really don't know.
Mhm.
Therefore, am I okay with allowing things to be unknown and mysterious?
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
moment that I allowed myself to do that, that's when some people might call it the hand of God. Some, Adam Smith calls it the invisible hand that kind of leads the consumers, like the supply and demand, the invisible hand of the economy coming in, whatever it is.
Mhm.
It's this thing that happens to push you in ways almost like the ocean currents push a boat, pushes you to a shore of a country that you're supposed to go to. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And you can't control it. Like it's not one of those things where I think that a lot of people want to feel like they're in control. They're the captain of the ship. But
Mhm.
oftentimes what we forget is that being the captain of the ship is an illusion. I think most of us are actually kind of like a castaway on a rowboat. You know?
This year, I think a lot of us relate to that metaphor, but
I think all of us have woken up from that illusion of I am the captain. And it's like, yeah, maybe a captain of a ship that has a ghost crew, but
yeah.
actually what we are is actually just castaways on a rowboat. And you
Mhm.
could either expend all your energy to, rowing, rowing, rowing against the ocean currents because you have no faith, you have no faith in whether it's in God, if you're somebody who's religious, or somebody like me who's an atheist, faith in myself and my inner archetypes. Um, there is this lack of faith, and therefore you feel like you need to control. But the day that I was just like, I'm going to put my oars inside, of course I'm going to row when the current is a certain way, right? But I'm going to have faith that there is this fighter in me, that there's a survivor in me, that whatever needs to come out of me to help me will come out and help me. What I
Mhm.
found was that life would send me to these lands. I would wash ashore on these lands. I would go in, I'd study the botany, I would study the customs, I would study everything, learn, sometimes get chased by the cannibals, who knows, But
Mhm.
the thing is that experience, the adventure of it, I was like, this is what it means to be human. Again, I could have just
Mhm.
stayed in the ether, just floating around. That would have been super cool. But here I am to experience what it's like to have thirst and hunger, and to have people wanting to gnaw on my thigh bone as
Mhm.
dinner, and to, just be uncertain, be in the middle of the ocean, nothing but ocean around me, and wondering, am I ever going to see land? Will I drown? To see sharks circling around
Mhm.
me. Like,
Mhm.
that is part of the human experience. And once that happened, a lot of my fear of life, not that it completely disappeared because I still have that fear, but it alchemized into curiosity.
Yeah.
And once that alchemy happens and you're curious, you still have the same, like, but instead of the, and then you can't do anything about it, you have the, and then you're like, wait a second, what happens if I do this and that? Wait, what
Mhm.
about this? What about that? Life then becomes fun and exciting and
Yeah.
horrible and weird and everything at once. And then you just can't wait to wake up every single day and you're just like, oh my God, what's next? And I think that more than monetary success, more than even like magical success, I think that excitement to wake up in this human form and to have this human experience, to me, that's success. I feel like living 80 years without that sort of inspiration, it's like a prison sentence. And I'm like, dude, I would
Yeah.
not want to be in prison, solitary confinement, basically, for 80 years. So if you are somebody who is homeless, but you can wake up every morning with that excitement, you're actually winning. You're winning
Mhm.
more than like most of us. Even if like the police are chasing you, whatever and stuff, there's a part of
Yeah.
you that is unsmitable. There's a part of you
Right.
that is beyond the confines of what human society and structure
Mhm.
has put upon you. And so I respect and admire people like that. And
Yeah.
that's, you know, yeah, so that's sort of
Mhm.
how I have shifted. This is what magic gave me. Not
Mhm.
science, not reading books about economy, not being angry at an Abrahamic God, magic, because magic is very first person doing. I'm not talking about
Yeah.
armchair occultist. I'm talking about straight up magic. The journey of magic, which involves alchemy. And sometimes it's straight up telling you, this is fucking alchemy, dude. That process of alchemy and doing the magic has led me here. And therefore, I believe that more people who are on my vibe, maybe who are more of the doer, not as much I'm a contemplator, but I would say I'm a little bit more of a doer. Those of us who could have been stuck in a life of just doing and not contemplating, those who could have just been stuck in the life of just a little bit more maybe surface level, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the occult is a great way to go deeper because you do have to do first hand experience things. It's not like religion where you just believe and that's just it. No, in magic, you literally
Absolutely.
have to do it. You literally have to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I mean, there are some kind of schools of thought where it is a lot more heady and intellectual, and then there are other types of practices that are much more hands-on, active, intuitive. And I mean, ideally, we would have some of both, but I think, like you said, yeah, I mean, to really fulfill your potential, you do need to be doing these things as well as learning about them.
I think it was what's that book? It's SSTOBME. I always just call it SOPIME, even though that's not how the acronyms work.
Hmm.
And it's from Lionel Snell, Ramsey Dukes. I forget which one's the real name and which one's the pen name. But I think he's a mathematician by training. I think he's a science guy, but he's also really deep into the occult. And he has this incredible graph where he's trying to classify in a wonderful way, like what he thinks are the differences and similarities between art, magic, religion, and science. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like on this graph, it's like the more subjective versus objective, the more experiential to I forget the actual graph things. It's been a while since I've read the
Mm-hmm.
book,
Mm-hmm.
but basically, magic is it has a lot to do with science. There's a lot of similarities. Both of them fall on the very high on the what do I see at the end? Do I actually see something change? You know, right? It's very
Yeah.
observational like that. But for magic, it's more about did it change for me versus science is there
Mm-hmm.
change for consensus reality for the masses?
Yeah. Ooh, and that's something I really encourage my students to do is don't take my word for it. See for yourself, experiment. What works for me may not necessarily work for you.
Right. You're starting a class, right? You're starting
I am here really soon. It's starting my class Introduction to Traditional Witchcraft. And I
what is
will,
traditional witchcraft, by the way? I always hear that term. I don't know exactly what that means.
yeah, so it is a more, it tends to have more elements of spirit communication and ecstatic practices. It usually, it's it's a little it's it has some similarities to Wicca, but it's very different in a lot of ways. I would say that it tends to really value the historical approaches to witchcraft, and a lot of times we spend a lot of time researching um, historical documents as well as
What sort
uh,
of historical documents?
oh well, like for example, in my path, one of my great resources is the Visions of Isabel Gowdy by Emma Wilby. And Emma Wilby is a fantastic researcher who wrote this big tome on um, basically the confessions of Isabel Gowdy, who was part of the witch trials. And she
Oh,
really paints this picture of what it was like to live during those times, what was probably going through Isabel's mind, just all different sorts of influences on her practice and what she reported in her practice. And it's a very thick and dry book. I actually have it right here. um, yeah, The Visions of Isabel Gowdy by Emma Wilby. But you can see it's a chunk here. And then she
nice.
also has written cunning folk and familiar spirits.
Oh, cool.
Shamanistic visionary traditions in early modern British witchcraft and magic. I just made up a word, Britchcraft. That's British
That's
witchcraft.
cool. Britchcraft. Wait, so
Yes.
so your tradition, would you say, is it because of your ancestry that it so far it seems to be focused more on like the British Isles?
Yeah, my path in traditional witchcraft, and the term traditional witchcraft could encompass a variety of traditions from a variety of places, but mine is, so I would say I have like kind of two major currents in traditional witchcraft, and that would be the pre-modern British sorceress current and the and some might call it fairy faith or fairy traditionalism. And then the other one is working more with Hekate and looking at Greek and PGM and incorporating that, like using the tools I know in traditional witchcraft to also work in that current, um, which we know, with Hekate, it's a lot of things are just pieced together with her, right? So, I mean, trying to respectfully use some tools to build a relationship with her. So in my course, I'm giving people a very solid foundation in traditional witchcraft, basic to intermediate practices, I would say, like how to build, the practices you want that support your life. I'm going to have everyone identify a goal they want to work on during the course, and we will take a look at how to use different tools to tackle the goal and get some coaching from me. And we'll learn how to respectfully approach spirits and build relationships with spirits that are so profound and are, the most important thing in the work, in my opinion. And we'll be looking at a few different worldviews within witchcraft and magic, just learning a little bit about that, just kind of things that I think are important for people to know, but covering a range of topics within witchcraft, everything from, the deities and spirits and types of practitioners to how to build the relationships to protection magic, herbs, even blessing and healing and cursing and hexing. And so we're going to touch on a lot of stuff. It's going to be a wild ride.
From what I'm hearing so far, it sounds like you're helping people build a custom built for them sort of arcana. Like it's like, so if you're somebody who knows basically kind of like the sort of energy that you like, the sort of paths that you're into, but you're sort of like, how do I put it all together?
Yeah.
And
I mean, I
then
would say my course has a decidedly British flavor, since that is what I've learned, but I do think that people could take what I'm teaching them and make some adjustments and, use it for, to work exclusively with Hekate. And we'll be talking about Hekate a lot because she is,
yeah, same here.
one of my main ones. So, and I want to be really careful as we're talking about this, like, some paths it might be okay to kind of create your own fun pack type thing, but then others it's like maybe like, ooh, appropriation, like you want to be really careful. But I think with like Hekate, we don't know the ancient mystery cult practices anymore, sadly. Like I dearly wish we did. But so, like some ideas for working with her and like how to more deeply empower yourself as a, traditional witch and or sorceress practitioner.
Well, I think it's very interesting that you and I, we come from very different paths and we practice very differently, and yet we both have that commonality, and that we both really enjoy working with
Mm-hmm.
Hecate, however you want to
Hecate,
call her name.
Hecate, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
everybody gets really hung up on the name, and it's like It's okay. As long as you come to her with good intentions, she won't be mad.
I say it both ways sometimes, which even more confuses people. So
Yeah, people on my TikToks, they're just like, wait, you said Hekate before, but now you say Hekate? What's the right one? And it's like, there is no right one because, I mean, this is like ancient times. The way they originally said her name is probably very different from the way we say her name right now. So don't worry about it.
mm,
Don't worry. She's a spirit. She gets it. She knows when she
mhm,
is being called. So don't worry about it. But like the way that both of us, being such different practitioners, um, that we both venerate her. And I
mhm,
think that's very interesting. And I really do feel as though there are certain energies or deities that are great for anyone interested in Western occultism. I think when it
mhm.
comes to Western, maybe not so much
Yes.
other strains, but Western occultism, Hekate, is a great foundation. Working with her is a great foundation for any sort of working in the Western occult tradition. What do you think?
Mhm. Yeah, I think Hekate is a very approachable spirit, and she's one of the spirits I found that maybe most understands the human condition. Like some spirits I work with are kind of like very similar to like a wild animal type of energy. And then like
Hmm.
other spirits like Hekate, it's like, oh, I'm like sitting down with, a lovely lady for tea type of feeling, and like Hecate doesn't always present that way to me, and I know she has her, scary epithets. Like,
Brimo,
yeah,
yeah.
yes, primo. But for me, Hecate shows up as generally like a warmer, loving, supportive presence that is pretty understanding and approachable, and like pretty beginner friendly. As long as you're not super disrespectful or something. So that's why I have a lot of good faith to share her with, in a more beginning to intermediate course like mine. So,
Yeah, I think she's ideal because first of all, her practice is open, so it's like
mhm,
everybody and anybody can partake without having to worry about that discussion. Second of all, so much of the practice around her is based upon, Hellenistic Egyptian magic, which is,
mhm,
I think, such an important foundation for all Western occultism. So you're
mhm,
also learning
mhm,
that. Hence why I love Jack Rail's course, Hail Hecate, and also his 50 Rites for 50 Nights, which goes more
mhm,
deeply into that PGM sort of magic.
mhm,
But also, I find that Hecate is a very healthy energy to work with because she does not create
mhm.
codependency. I've noticed
Yeah.
that a lot of people, they're looking for a new god, they're looking for a new worship, new golden calf to kind of kneel down in front of.
Mhm,
And I find that working with Hecate is kind of not like that at all. To me, and I think Hecate shows up in different ways for different people, but that archetype of Hecate, when it comes out in me, that's the vocabulary I use as an atheist witch.
mhm, mhm,
And working with that inner archetype, Hecate presents to me as somebody who is almost like a somebody you can think of who is like on top of their field, like really successful, really on top of their field. You really respect them. And
mhm.
they are almost like your mentor, but they don't want you to be like they're, like, oh my God, I'm not worthy. They're like, can we
Yeah.
please be
Like,
colleagues?
no fangirling.
No
No.
fangirling. I don't want to waste my time being around somebody who's just gonna like be constantly just like, no. Can we
Yeah.
please get work done? Can we be colleagues? Because my goal is for us to become peers. So maybe at this point you feel as though I'm above you and you're below me, but the goal is to get us here so we can look at each other in the eye, both of
Mhm,
us directly in the eye with respect.
mhm,
Not a motherly figure to me, not somebody who's going to coddle me, not going to handhold. And instead, Hecate is
mhm,
like, when you're ready, you're ready. If you fuck up, come back when you feel as though you're ready to come back without fucking up. Not at all like mad or angry or ego driven or jealousy driven or anything like that. Like seriously, like such a healthy energy. Sort of like that friend you have who's just like, don't disrespect me, but if you come back with like, I'm so sorry, they'll forgive you. And if
mhm,
you come at them with respect and good intention while you're working with them, even if you fuck up, they'll be like, all right, that was a fuck up. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. Let's
mhm,
see how we can work to make it better. So to me, Hecate and the way that I work with her is to try to become more like her, literally, like because Jason Miller's Sorcery of Hecate course is very much about that.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's to become like her, literally, right? The arcana is to
Mhm.
literally become like her. Therefore, over the past 2.5, 3 years that I've been doing this, I feel as though the alchemy is that I have become more and more like her, literally in the way that I live my life, the energy I exude.
Absolutely.
Have you found the same?
I relate to that deeply. Mhm.
Isn't that
Mhm.
amazing, guys? Like, think about it. Like, for those listening, to have this amazing tool at our disposal where we can either work with an external spirit or an inner archetype, depending on your framework, and you become more and more like that archetype. Imagine, like, if you love Beyonce, to not just be Beyonce's fangirl, but to have Beyonce mentor you and for you one day to become more and more like Beyonce. Isn't that the dream? Isn't that the goal? Some people, they're fine being the fangirl. And if that's the case, I would say Hecate is not the right one for you. But if you're somebody who wants to become more and more like this strong, independent, no ego, but don't fuck with her, don't disrespect her, she will respect you, give back the same energy you give back to her, accomplished, on top of her game. If you want to be around somebody and become more like that energy, no hand holding, no sugarcoating, but still supportive and nurturing in that, I would say, almost like Virgo energy way. Um,
Mhm.
I think Hecate is a wonderful, wonderful archetype spirit to work with.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Mhm.
What are some big lessons that you've learned from Hecate?
Oh, the biggest one lately has been a lot to do with my own personal sovereignty
Mm,
and, yeah, believing in myself more, having more of my own self-confidence, um, trusting myself, which I think a lot of women especially struggle with, and,
right.
um, really there is kind of a weird gaslighting of women that goes on in our culture, like, oh, she's just so emotional, and it's like, well, no, she actually had very valid reasons to feel this way, and you can trust your body when it makes you feel a certain
Yes.
way.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yes. Yes. I would have to say that that's one of the greatest lessons that I've learned and I'm still learning by
Mhm.
working with Hecate in trying to be more like her, not just venerate her,
Mhm.
but to become more like her and exchange energy with her. And one of the ways that I realized that it was starting to become me, not just me faking it till I make it, but it was literally becoming like
Mhm.
me, is that I did a TikTok live a couple days ago. And during the live, something in me just had enough of people, and during the TikTok lives, it's not just your followers, anybody on TikTok, and it's showing up on people's For You pages, can join the live. And all these people were coming in and asking me the most general questions, almost like they were using me as Google, right?
Hmm.
And I was like, enough, And I went on this entire thing where I was just like, if you come to me without doing your research, why the hell should I speak to you?
Mhm.
And I didn't raise my voice or anything like that. Instead, I just basically said, listen, the type of witchcraft that you do, the sort of magic you do, I can already tell it's garbage. Like, I didn't sugarcoat it. I was like, if you're going to come, if would you go to a job interview? Would you go to somebody you respect? And would you ask them the most elementary things, or would you show up prepared? The fact that you didn't show up prepared and instead expect me to be your Google is disrespectful. And that shows a lot to me. So the way that you approach an invisible, subtle energy deity like Hecate, the way that you approach spirits is probably still going to be like that. You're going to go not thinking about the value you can bring to the table, but about what you can take from the deity. Give me this miracle. Give me this thing. Why should they give it to you? Have you given them
Mhm.
anything? Have you offered them anything? Have you done the research of them? Have you shown them respect? No, you're just a taker. You're just somebody who wants to take, and you want the miracles. You don't want to ever bring value to the table because it doesn't even occur to you in your mindset. And I said, so the way that you do witchcraft and magic is garbage. I don't want to talk to you. Goodbye. And I just said it clearly like that. And I realized that I had been trained all my life not to put down boundaries like that. I had to be
Mm.
nice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the nice girl.
The
Why
nice
don't you
girl.
just be a nice girl? Oh,
Right,
ew.
right. And also the way not only was I raised to be a nice girl, but society punished me when I wasn't.
Yes.
And
They,
so
assertive, dominant women get called a bitch. They get called like crazy. Like women are not very supported in our society for being
no,
empowered.
they're so not. But at that moment, something in me switched. Something in me switched. And it was like not even about being. I realized that also there was a part of me that wondered maybe people are just putting on an act when they're acting bitchy. You know what I mean? Because for me, I consider myself to be a very patient person and just naturally a nice person, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I can't imagine myself like being like this. And then finally, something in me switched and I was like, I get it now. The thing is that I have an X amount of energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And X amount of mental space. I don't want to waste it on somebody who I know is going to be a horrible mage, a horrible witch, because I know they're approaching subtle energy deities in the same way they're approaching me. Because
Mm-hmm.
I am a subtle energied person because they're seeing me on their laptop or phone screen. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
real to them, right?
Yeah.
And so if they're approaching me like that without any sort of respect and preparation, of course they're going to approach Hecate that way. Of course they're going to approach the Morgan or Kali or whoever else
Mm-hmm.
that way. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I hope you don't. I really hope you don't approach them. I hope that I turn you off from witchcraft so they don't have to deal with your bullshit, right? So in a
Mm-hmm.
way I was just like, this is me feeling very, very comfortable being like, no, I'm not going to tell you shit. You either prepare and you come back prepared, or don't even bother. Don't even bother going to these deities and wasting their time. You're wasting my time. Haha.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Go
going to
read
waste
a
theirs.
book first and then come back
Seriously.
when you have something of meaning to bring to the discussion.
Exactly. And I so bet that if they were to try to, and you know that somebody who comes without preparation and stuff, that probably means that in their life they don't prepare either. So they're constantly having sort of like emergencies and issues. And so they're turning to these deities for like last minute like favors. And I'm like, don't do that to deities. That's so rude,
Mm-mm.
you
Just like
know?
with a friend, like if you have that friend that's constantly calling you like, oh, my car broke
Yeah.
down, oh, I need $500 for rent, oh, I need you to drive me to the ER. Like if they're calling you like in a span of a month asking all these things, you're going to be like, what the actual fuck, like you're not okay,
Exactly.
like what do we need to do to make you okay? But it's like
Exactly.
exhausting, right?
It is. And you know what?
And that doesn't come from a place of not wanting to help people. Like I feel like I'm one of the most genuinely helpful people I've met. Like I try to be very helpful, but like there is a line when it's like, okay, like your failure to prepare does not constitute an emergency on my part, and at a certain point it's
Yes.
just asking for too much, right?
It really is. And I realized also at that moment that it would be different if they had spent weeks, months getting to know me, sending me gifts, or doing the things that you would do to a deity, right? Like on
Mm-hmm.
TikTok lives, you can send people like appreciation, like monetary things, right? You can send
Mm.
them like appreciation badges that shows that you're contributing, not a lot, $1 here, $2, whatever, or at least showing up to my lives, commenting on my stuff, interacting, providing value for me as well, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so when you do need something from me, right? Then all of a sudden it's like, of course, you've brought so much value into my life, now it becomes an equal exchange as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that I realize it is about what I consider to be fair exchange of energy.
Yes, absolutely.
Fair exchange
Needs to
of
be
energy.
reciprocal.
It needs to
Mm-hmm.
be a two-way street. And the thing
Mm-hmm.
is that people who are good at this energy, two-way energy, they are naturally emotionally and socially intelligent because they
Mm-hmm.
get it. They don't just slide into people's DMs and just be like, "Hey, can I ask you a question that's going to take like 20 minutes to answer?" Because they know that, you know what? They don't know me. Why should they? They get it. So it's people like when people just randomly, like I don't know who they are. They got 2 followers and I don't know who they are. And they just want to basically take from me. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, nope, 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 not interested. So the thing is that I can also tell that probably as a friend, as a person, like in real life, they're probably not the best friend. They're not the most best employee. They're just not, because their life, their perspective is very them-centered. You know, it's like, what can I get out of it? But that's not how it works. In magic, working with deities, if you want really, like, if you want it to be a win situation for you, it has to be a win situation for the deity. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't have that perspective, then it's not going to happen. And the fact that there are so many people who don't have social skills, who don't have emotional intelligence, who are trying to work with deities, I'm just like, if deities were real in my mind and if they were external, I feel very sorry. I'm just like, I am so sorry that like
Mm-hmm.
that you have to deal with that shit,
Yeah.
Hecate. I am so sorry that that fucking idiot is like trying to just take from you. But
Yeah.
you know, and that's the reason why I feel very comfortable calling my followers and stuff into people who I hope will realize that like the way that I speak about Hecate is, I think, the way that Hecate is. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe Hecate is a very subtle energy for most people, so it's my job to make her more material by hopefully channeling her message through my face and my meat suit and my voice,
Mm-hmm.
and to say things that I think that you know, to bring the Hecatean vibe. And so hopefully they'll view my Hecate stuff and realize that my entire account is me trying to embody what I think is the Hecatean vibe. That's so
Mm-hmm.
my entire TikTok, and I kind of feel emotional talking about this.
Mm.
Everything, my Hecate work is basically, you can see it in all my social media.
Yeah.
You can see it in all my social, you can see the growth in my YouTube, you can see it in my TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that I am trying to be like Hecate.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that.
every single content I make about Hecate is a type of token of appreciation for her. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
just give her eggs and wine. That's cool and everything, but my Hecatean appreciation and offerings, they also come in the form of the content I put up, the way that I conduct my life, the way that I speak to people, the way that I stood up for myself, the way that I put in that boundary, the way that I said, you will not treat me with such disrespect. All these
Mm-hmm.
are ways that I also give as a token of respect to Hecate. And just from how I see it, I personally think that Hecate appreciates those kind of mundane tokens
I do
just as
too.
much,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I do too.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I I am trying to reimagine what, instead of just an elaborate altar, instead of just elaborate offerings, just the elaborate sort of like taking time out of your day to do something that is just very obviously magical. Some people
Mm-hmm.
can't do that. They still live at home with their parents, and their parents are super Christian. They live in an apartment, and their roommates would be freaked out. Or maybe they're
Mm-hmm.
not as able-bodied and they can't do that. What can they do instead?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that the offerings, the altar, and everything, these are important symbols, but ultimately they're tools. They're like the hammer, they're like the screwdriver, they're like the, you know, the fucking ruler.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the,
Sometimes the only temple we have is within our own mind, right?
yes, yes, even if it,
And we need to be able to access that when we don't have anything else, right? That could be like literally life-saving to be able to access this
yeah,
temple of our own mind. And that is something I'm really planning on talking about in my class and
I love that.
guiding people on how to do that. But I think that is a hugely important part of our practice that is often overlooked.
Oh my God, I love that you brought that up. I went to see Damien Eccles
Mm.
speak in person.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah. And actually, I will be a speaker at Avalon Con this July, and he's one of the speakers as well.
Ooh,
So I'm super excited.
ooh.
Oh my God. He follows me on Twitter, and I completely freaked out. And yeah, I was completely fangirling because I really respect him
Uh-huh.
as basically as a sorcerer.
Oh,
To
you should
me,
interview him.
I know, right? I'm like a little bit shy to ask him right now, but I am so, I respect his magic so much, and I hate reading about people who make fun of his magic because it's quote unquote, what is this, the 90s? It's just doing it's like,
Mhm.
who cares? Magic is just a tool. He got off
Mhm.
of death fucking row. And now he lives a sort of life where he's just like, writing books, and he's hanging out with Johnny
Yeah.
Depp, and what's his face, that guy that made the director of like Lord of the Rings and stuff. Like,
Mhm.
guys, he was practicing magic 8 to 10 hours a day when he wasn't sleeping. He was practicing magic in prison.
Mhm.
He wasn't talking, he wasn't on Facebook pontificating, he was doing the work
Yeah.
for years, 8 to 10 hours a day. And you're trying to tell me that his magic is just so old, and it's just, you don't know. He's writing books for young magicians who are starting in the craft, but him as a mage himself, you I'm sorry, but if you can talk shit about somebody who was on death row, got off of death row, and while on death row was doing magic for 8 to 10 hours a day for like 10 years, I'm just like,
Mhm.
seriously? In some ways, I'm just like, fuck you. Like, seriously, like, you're a hater.
Yeah.
You're a hater.
Well, and I think this is true for many of us who are posting content and sharing things. Like, it's like an iceberg, like the tip of the iceberg is what we're sharing. And like, it's so
Yes.
easy for people to judge us on, oh, that seems lighter or that seems basic. But it's like, well, what lies below the surface is far more than we share. And there are
Right.
many, many, many secret things we don't share with just anyone. Like, I'm not going to throw my pearls before swine here, not to offend anyone, but like, I guard my treasures like a dragoness, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
yeah.
Why is it that every magician's like, I'm so deep, my practice is so deep and full of nuance, but they don't extend that same perspective to other magicians? Are you the only
Yeah.
magician in the world who's got some deep stuff, like the Stillwaters run
Hmm.
deep stuff? No, other people are like that too. And I can promise you, I am a skeptic, and I am somebody, I will sniff out phonies. Like, I do that because
Mm-hmm.
like I walk into a room and I can tell, like, especially if I meet somebody in person, like, I just know because that's just how I'm built. I'm just like really just like not impressed often.
Yeah.
Um but I was in this talk with Damien Eccles, and wow, he's the real deal. And I, again, that entire thing of the vibe that he has, like occupying that liminal space, he does it.
Mm.
And he does it so naturally. And I was
I
just
bet
like,
after 8 to 10 hours of practice a day,
for
like, how
years,
is
for
he even
years,
still living on this plane? Like, like, I wonder how he
years.
hasn't just completely purely ascended into the ethers, right?
I know, right? And the fact that he was
Uh,
able to alchemize his time in prison, and he was like, listen, I know everybody wants me to say that prison was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but he was like, I'm not sure I can say that, because he was able to alchemize that experience. How many of us, it's like, we're not even in prison, we're not on death row, nothing like that, having our reputation be smirched and totally pulled through shit for something we didn't even do, right?
mhm.
We're not even doing that, and we can't even handle just like, I don't know, like some guy cutting us off in traffic.
Yeah.
It's like, can we please have perspective here? So what if his magic seems to be 1990s style? So what? So what if he writes books that
Hey,
are
it
popular?
worked for him.
It
That vouches far more that it could get him
Exactly.
out of death row than just about anything else, right?
Exactly. And the same also with the Sigil engine, that website that just came out like a couple
Hmm.
months ago. The one that Dara Mason and his partner, I don't remember the partner's name, but also, Dara, I'm totally probably saying his name wrong because it's Irish, but he has a podcast called Spirit Box,
Mm.
and he and a partner created a basically the coolest website ever, where you put in your intention and it will create a sigil for you, right? But like the
Mm.
coolest looking sigil ever. And
Mm.
people were saying such shit about the
Mm.
website, and I was just like, first of all, the website's fucking free, and second
Yeah.
of all, what have you done, right?
Yeah,
And
like,
it's
have you
just,
actually tried it? I mean, like, if it didn't work for you, I guess you have every right to say, it didn't work for me. But Yeah, it's, what if it does work for some other people? I mean, I think magic is so experimental in nature. Like you really just have to try and
Tr-
see what works for you. And
exactly.
like
And
I
so
think
what
that
if
people
it's
that judge other people's practices probably have forgotten or lost touch, or maybe haven't done as much work for themselves, like knowing that, like,
right?
oh, we really have to experiment here, and different things work for different people.
Right. And it's like you have time to be concerned about other people's practice. I barely have time to like take a shower, you know what I mean? So
Right.
it's sort of like I don't, even if I wanted to, I just don't have the mental space. I'm just sort of like, okay, that's good, that's good, that's good. I barely have time to
Yeah.
comment back to people who comment to me on
Hmm.
social media. And it's like
Yeah.
I think the main argument was that, oh, sigils should be made by hand, like you're
Mm,
making a website. And I'm just like, I don't know how to tell you this, guys, but like the world has evolved. And sure, okay, so maybe a lot of people using the site are young witches. And sure, it would be ideal maybe if they learned the technology themselves and learned how to make it by hand. But how come no one is saying the same shit when astrologers they go on astro.com and they make their birth charts? But you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's sort of like, are we so fetishizing the tools that we forget the mindset? Are we so
Hmm.
fetishizing the actual artifact that we're forgetting the most important part, the mindset that created the artifact? Can we please
Hmm.
have our priorities straight here? So
Hmm.
for me, I'm just like, it's just a tool, guys. It's just a
Yeah.
tool. Let's not get worked up about it. But
Yeah.
it just makes me so I would even say like not just angry but like disappointed to see this. And it's also one of the reasons why like I just don't want to be as involved in this community as I was before, because what I'm
Mm.
seeing is just not what I consider to be healthy dynamics. And
Hmm.
especially during the pandemic and BLM and everything, I saw a lot of people show their true colors, and I was just like,
Mm.
no thanks. So
I relate to
combine,
that. It can
yeah,
be kind of
right,
vicious, and you got to be careful who's in your closest circle. You got to really,
yes,
really, be
right.
intentional about that. Hmm.
Right. And I think when I
Cool.
was even a year ago, I would have been more reluctant to talk about this and not
Hmm.
as forthright about my opinions about this. Because again, it was that I was still working on alchemizing this by working with Hekate, and I was still working on all of that just as a person in general. And this is what the occult has done, guys. So the occult, ironically, working within this model of like, like true will, Hecate, and all that stuff, it has made me into the person who's just like not impressed with a lot of the occult stuff that I'm seeing.
Hmm.
Gonna talk about it and say it without the same sort of trepidation I had before. So
Hmm.
it sounds almost as if the occult helped me go beyond the occult, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I got an eye on the time. I have to run here pretty soon, but I did want to just say, I have a surprise, and that's that I would like to offer 5 scholarships to my class to your followers. So,
Oh my God. That is so amazing. And
yeah.
guys, like we're talking about a class where you are being coached basically by Kalan on how to take all the things that you're working with and put them together in a practice in a type of arcana that works great for you. And I think for those who especially work within Western occultism, and especially those who perhaps are thinking like, oh, there's maybe disparate things that I'm working with. And of course, we're not talking about closed practices, guys. We're not talking about cherry picking. We're talking about people who are really and absolutely respectful, and also not just dabbling in magic. We're talking about people who are thoughtful and are like, I'm doing all this magic, but I'm not exactly sure how to put it all together. Maybe I need the help of an experienced witch, but it's just I'm a unique case. And it's like, bingo, Kalan's class. It is the class to take. And you will have access to her. I hope I'm using the right
Hmm.
pronouns.
Hmm.
I hope that you guys will consider like how amazing your magic will just go like quickly, how amazing your magic will be and how much it will upgrade, like go to next level when you have somebody who has walked a similar path in terms of like putting together lots of disparate views and practices and putting it together in a way that's cohesive for them. So, Colin, can you tell me again, what is the name of your class?
It's called Introduction to Traditional Witchcraft, and it's taught by me, Calahn de la Luna, with the Blackthorne School. Blackthorne has an E on the end, but I will include a link. And I would also like to link to your conference coming up this summer, and anything. I'll probably link to your TikTok and anything else that you're sharing. I know
When does your
you
class
just,
start?
it actually starts this coming Monday. So yeah,
Okay.
it's don't miss out.
Right.
You
So it's
know,
coming this Monday. How long is the class for?
it runs 13 weeks.
13
So
weeks.
yeah.
Cool. So
So
is it
that's
that?
this Monday, March 15th, 2021, in case anyone's watching this in the future. But yeah.
So it is 13 weeks. Is it the format is it like a video a week and then they can like go on some sort of message board or something like that? How's the format?
Yeah, so I will be posting a video. My intention is every week, but I also have some pretty extensive written material, and we will be having a private Facebook group where people can interact and get to know others that are working on all this and ask questions, and I'll be answering a Q&A every week. So it's going to be pretty lively and fun and lots to learn. So
Cool.
I
Now
hope that you'll join us.
yeah, that sounds really great. I just wanted to clarify, Blackthorne School is a literal like portal, almost like Coursera or something like that. Like the classes like live on this website, so you're gonna have to sign up with your email, put in a password, and then you'll go onto their school website. It's like Teachable in a way like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're gonna watch the videos, but there is also a separate Facebook group where you can
Mm-hmm.
interact with Calahn and other students.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, once you sign up for the course, you also can, I'm sure that you'll be open to having people, like if they're too shy to go on Facebook, I'm sure that you will also
Yeah,
say,
if anyone isn't wanting to participate in the Facebook component, that is perfectly fine. And I can send them the documents, and they'll have access to the videos by logging onto their private account on our website. And it would be no problem if they're not participating in the Facebook component.
awesome. And again,
And
guys, go
and
ahead.
I will be guiding each week. We're going to have new material, but it's also pre-recorded and you can work at your own pace, and so no stress. And I am really thrilled. I have so much to share that I think will be super helpful.
That sounds so amazing. And Kalan, the fact that you're giving scholarships, five scholarships to my followers, I think that's so generous of you. Actually, Blackthorne School has been so generous to offer scholarships to also Jack Rail's class. So I'm just very grateful that you're trying to make magic and witchcraft and the occult as accessible to so many young people as possible. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Young people are my heart. I love them. So I try
Yay.
to support the seeker, kind of demystifying the crooked path as much as one can. I mean, it is a mystical path, so you can't completely simplify it sometimes, but I do try to help people have a little bit easier time figuring this all out.
It's
So,
always better with a mentor. It's all Hekate is
mm-hmm,
my mentor. Jack
mm-hmm,
Rail is my mentor. Jason Miller's my mentor. Aiden Walker's my mentor. People I've never even met. Chris Doe, that designer slash entrepreneur on YouTube, he's my mentor. So the thing is that there's so
mm-hmm,
many mentors that we can have, but to have access to a real life can respond to you in real time and adjust to your special needs in real time. Having that sort of mentor is such a boon, such a great way
mm-hmm.
to very efficiently upgrade your comfort and your practice and just everything that you love about magic to take it to the next level. You can get there in 5 years, you can get there in 2 years, or if you have a mentor, you can get there even faster. And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
like doing things faster, so I
Me
recommend.
too. Work
I
smarter,
recommend.
not harder, right?
Exactly,
Yeah. Well,
exactly.
thank you so much, Chaweon. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm so looking forward to all that you have to offer. I have a sneaking suspicion that this won't be the last interview we have together. I feel like I could have talked to you all night.
Right. It
So
was
thank
so
you for
glad.
taking the time.
Yeah, I'm so glad we were able to link up.
Me too. Well, thank you so much. You have a great evening.
You too.
Bye.